Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties, education, and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
Liberty Counsel filed its brief before the United States Supreme Court on Obamacare, and in the meantime, all of these other regulations are moving forward, such as those that will impact religious institutions. We're going to be talking about it on Faith and Freedom. I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Ron Miller, associate dean at the Helms School of Government at Liberty University. Ron, this is a momentous time in history with regards to this case before the United States Supreme Court. Liberty Counsel just filed two briefs before the United States Supreme Court, one on the so-called Anti-Injunction Act and the other on the fact that this exceeds Congress's ability to regulate under the Commerce Clause. We filed two separate briefs on this issue. Those are at the United States Supreme Court. Later in the month of March, the end of March, this case will be argued over a 3-day period, and a decision will come down by the end of June. This is the biggest decision in recent history with regards to the role of the federal government and its ability to regulate.
I think when people talk about health care, they don't understand that socialists from times past saw health care as a way not just to provide a service to people, but a way to take control of the entire society. And you're seeing that with Obamacare. It's having impact on religious liberty. It's having an impact on individual liberty. And it's just pervasive in the way that it affects society. And I think even the military has had to deal with that recently, where there was a conflict between the Catholic bishops who read a letter opposing the Obamacare mandates for contraceptions and other abortifacients, and the Office of Chaplains for the military, which forbade that letter to be read in their Catholic services. So we're seeing some serious implications of this law, and I think that it's going to be a momentous decision when it comes down.
You know, it's an amazing situation, not only the case that's coming up, but then, of course, the regulations. And, you know, some people think, well, this doesn't go into effect until 2014. Well, the mandate doesn't go into effect until 2014, but other parts of the law are already moving forward and moving forward into effect. And one of the things that just recently was in the news is the issue of the required provision of contraception by religious organizations and also abortifacients, abortion-inducing drugs, or sometimes called the morning after pill. Those kinds of drugs will be required of most religious organizations. I saw on C-SPAN a representative from Tennessee that was taking the position that this is a serious intrusion on religious liberty. And incredibly, on the other side, someone who said, no, this is not religious liberty. If you want to go out in the marketplace, then you have to provide these same kinds of services and providing contraception if you're a Catholic institution or any other institution that's opposed to abortion, providing abortifacients. That doesn't affect your religious freedom at all. You just do it. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of the role of religion and the First Amendment and the right to have freedom of conscience in this country.
You're asking people essentially to be a party to things that they, to their very core, disagree with. And one of the things that I think is going to be interesting as this case moves forward is some of the recent rulings in the Supreme Court, like the ministerial exemption in terms of hiring, and how that's going to affect the thinking as they look at this case, because quite clearly in that particular case, which was unanimous in its ruling, they said that churches and religious institutions do have a right to hire as they see fit in accordance with their values. And it seems to me that that kind of legal thinking would apply in this case as well. But one of the things that I find interesting about this is that you're seeing a response to this that is probably unprecedented in recent years, where you have the Catholic Church, 90% of their bishops are pushing back against this. You have the evangelical organizations that are joining with them. The response has been so powerful. I understand inside campaign circles, they're very concerned about the impact this is going to have on their electoral opportunities. And so they're talking about possibly trying to change this, but the only concession they're willing to make is that they will fine you if you don't comply, as opposed to any other form of punishment. I think it really speaks to simply how intent they are of putting this agenda out there and pressing this agenda. It isn't about liberty. It isn't about being consistent with our laws. It's about a worldview and a belief that they're determined to implement at all costs.
It really is. It's about a clash of worldviews, and it's a radical commitment by this administration to Planned Parenthood and to the pro-abortion agenda. And in fact, Kathleen Sebelius, who is the Secretary of the Health and Human Services, was the former governor of Kansas, and she was a good friend. And with Planned Parenthood there, she invited them into the governor's mansion. She was a good friend with the abortion late-term doctor, Dr. Tiller, and she also invited him into the governor's mansion. So she was participating in one of the most gruesome procedures by condoning this particular doctor with the late-term abortion. He was often referred to as Tiller the Killer by people in the pro-life movement. And so this is a very radical agenda, a radical administration that is committed to abortion. In fact, when President Obama was running for office in 2008, he said the very first act that he wanted to do as president was to sign into law the Freedom of Choice Act. And that would essentially abolish every restriction on abortion, including clinic regulations, informed consent, parental consent. And he did that at a Planned Parenthood event. So this is that ideology, it's that worldview that is being implemented and forced upon America through this Obamacare legislation. And that clash comes right up against the clash of religious liberty. It's just like the clash that this administration has been pushing with regards to the homosexual agenda. It's a worldview clash, and they're not talking about liberty or tolerance. They're talking about dominating any opposing worldview, particularly a religious worldview.
And it's interesting that when we talk about the concept of worldview, some people respond negatively to that. But the fact is that that worldview governs everything that flows from it, and they are incompatible. People have to realize there is no moral neutrality when you're talking about this kind of an issue. There is a worldview that is God-centered, that is Christ-centered. There's a worldview that is based on man and man's superiority and the ability of man to make decisions for other people. And I think people have to understand that this conflict is coming to a head, and we're seeing that in rulings like this. And the Congress is trying to push back. You have legislation being introduced in the Senate and in the House to try and restore religious liberty, which the terminology in of itself is disheartening, because who would have thought that in the United States of America we'd have to have a bill that was called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act?
Yeah, I know Senator Marco Rubio is one of the sponsors of that, and certainly we applaud the senator and others that are co-sponsors of that bill. We sent out a press release at Liberty Counsel supporting that particular piece of legislation. But it is a Band-Aid because we should never have had to gotten to that point.
Exactly.
The problem is the underlying cancer, and it's manifested itself in Obamacare, and underlying that is the worldview from which it flows. And that's really getting to the core of the issue.
I really encourage people who are listening to understand that this is one of those things where I believe that most Americans are with us when it comes to the ability to express their faith in the public square and to live out their faith without interference from their government. I believe that the majority of Americans are with us, but they need to do more. And I would encourage them to understand that when it comes to who they put in office and the people that they go through and evaluate, that they have a role in trying to ensure that these things are protected. No one can be on the sidelines anymore in this. I think we're seeing we need all hands on deck.
We definitely need all hands on deck, and that's a good intro to our website. We've got a number of different resources there for you. Let me just go over one of those in particular. We have a very active grassroots email of about 500,000 people, and these are individuals that are very active. We give them information, we'll give you information, and you can respond by giving a letter, by giving a petition, whatever it might be. You've been very active, and it's been very helpful. You can go to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, to sign up for it. It's called the Liberty Grassroots Action email. You can do that right there on the front page. We also have another informative email that is called the Liberty Alert, right there on the website as well, lc.org, and the Liberator monthly newsletter. All three of those, I think, are very good pieces of information, very good tools to not only get you informed about what's going on in the country, but also give you a resource for how you can respond, not just simply take in information, but also, as Ron says, to understand the seriousness of this issue and to take action. Go to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org. Also, please remember Liberty Counsel in your prayers and your financial contributions. You can make an online credit card contribution right there on the website, or you can mail in a contribution right there on the address at lc.org.
You have been listening to Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedoms. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.